What's the most wholesome thing a stranger has done for you?
The guy next to me on a plane once woke me up when the flight attendant came around with ice cream and got an ice cream so that I could have two. I'll never forget that man.
When I was working as a cashier, an older man pulled out $1 and asked if I wanted to see something cool. Slightly skeptical, I said sure. He folded it into a little shoe and gave it to me, and it was the cutest thing. Then he told me, well, you can't just have one shoe. And folded another into a second shoe, and I still have them on my desk because I didn't have it in me to unfold them.
Not me, but my sister. She got severely sunburned while on holidays in Sri Lanka. We thought she was feeling better as she spent the whole previous day in bed. We went on a trip to a waterfall in the jungle. We were friends with locals who brought us. After swimming in the water, her skin starts burning to the point where she is in tears and won't let anyone touch her. We have nothing to help her. Maybe 5 minutes later, some local villagers appear with aloe vera plants and proceed to gently rub it onto her skin. Total strangers who saw the situation went to their house and brought the aloe vera. It was so kind I couldn't believe it. We ended up talking to them and they made us all dinner, which we ate together from a bucket in the middle of the jungle. Unforgettable.
A guy in France, I asked for directions. Not only he walked me to the place, but he also kept me company and chatted while I visited it. He left after 15 minutes though because he had an appointment.
He helped me change a flat tire. Recommended a place for me to go to the next day to get it checked out. When I got there the next morning, he had stopped by to drop off his business card and to tell them to take good care of my vehicle. When they called me to tell me that the car was ready, they also told me that he had paid for the new tire. Still can't believe it. You don't get people who do that for someone they have never met before.
One guy in the Santa Claus costume came to me and gave me some sweets perfectly in the moment, when I almost had a panic attack. We talked for like 15 minutes after that. This folk made my day.
I was sitting alone at the cafeteria and a teacher came up to me and gave me food that she bought for me. I didn't know who she was. She has never taught me.
My senior year in high school, I stole my lunch every day. I was essentially on my own by then due to reasons and completely broke. I thought I was getting away with it for the entire year. Towards the end of the year, the dean called me into the office and explained that they knew I was stealing lunches the whole time. He then gave me a number to enter that would cover my meals. He told me not to worry about all the food, it was being covered by a faculty member. I never knew who it was exactly, but I suspect it was an elderly English teacher I had. She was always trying to sneakily give me cash and refused to let me deny. She even offered to loan me her new BMW when I made a comment about not having money for gas. I loved her. Edit words.
I worked at a gas station at the time. I'd gotten myself a pretty large burn on one arm, helping someone lift a grill after it had been used, and he dropped it without warning. A customer saw my arm, bought her stuff and came back 5 minutes later. She'd gotten me an aloe vera plant so I could break off pieces of it and rub on my burn. I thought that was pretty wholesome, smiley face.
When I was in my early 20s, I ran out of gas 2 blocks from a gas station and had no money. A man came up to my car with a jug of gas and filled my car for me. I asked him for a way to pay him back and he said, "I have a daughter your age and I know how hard it is. Merry Christmas." And he walked away. I will always remember this man. So nice, so giving.
There's a spot in the building I work at that nobody wants to work in. It's the coldest area in the building because there's an opening that doesn't close and doesn't have heat, so you can't even eat food safely because the wind will blow it away. I was moved from where I usually am and wasn't prepared for how cold it would be there. I could barely handle money because my fingers felt frozen. A customer noticed how cold it was and without even asking if I was cold, he took off his gloves and gave them to me. I have no idea what his name was, but it was the most thoughtful thing a complete stranger has ever done for me. I still have the gloves too.
A stranger who used to be a customer at my job took me aside once and told me she has seen my journey over the years and is so proud of me. She started crying and gave me a hug. I wish I could tell her how much that meant to me.
Many years ago, when my brother and I were traveling to Finland on a whim and most places were booked out, a Finnish student we encountered and asked for a youth hostel spontaneously let us sleep in her dorm's living room. For a few days, she even gave up her own dorm room for us and stayed at her estranged husband's place. She showed us around, bought us some typical Finnish food and sweets, and was just incredibly nice towards two naive foreigners. We stayed in contact for a bit until she went abroad, and sadly I never managed to find her again. This was before Facebook and she had a very common name. But I hope she knows how much I appreciated her kindness.
I was in Paris and got into a huge fight with someone I cared about. We bolted in different directions. I jumped on a crowded metro headed for my hotel and wept. Many people stared, but one dear woman fished a tissue out of her purse for me. It was really simple, but it meant a lot.
In college, flying to visit my father for spring break. The airport was 45 minutes away from campus and I didn't have a car. After my ride left, the flight was delayed until the next day, and the airline said that because I lived nearby I didn't qualify for a hotel room for the night. A lovely couple gave me their hotel room voucher, as they decided to drive through the night instead. It helped me out when I was in a really tight spot.
Asked if I was okay, nearly cried. It was a tough time, but them asking that made me feel less alone and that someone cared enough to ask. I'm all right now, thankfully.
My 4 kids, husband and I were traveling to see family and stopped at a Red Robin for dinner. While waiting for a table, a gentleman next to us sneezed and I said bless you without thinking about it. We were shown our table shortly after and we ate our dinner. When the bill came, the waitress told us our bill had been paid for by someone who appreciated the blessing I gave him and wanted to give us one back.
The first time I had to move for college, I went to the nearest city and took a train that would have taken me to the city in which I was going to live. The train stopped halfway and wasn't going anywhere for the rest of the day, due to a strike. So I was stuck there. Some random guy then said to me, "Hey, my sister is coming in a minute, we are going back to city I was coming from, do you need a ride?" I accepted against better judgment, but he was really nice, didn't even ask me to pay for gas or anything like that, brought me back to the city and pointed me to some buses I could take. The hilarious part was calling my mom telling her I was in some stranger's car about 3 hours after getting out of her house.
I had a relationship go south and I ended up taking our 10-year anniversary trip to a foreign country alone. I met a local in one of the cities I stayed in and she hung out with me all day. Showed me the lay of the land, bought me a couple beers, and gave me a smooch at the end of the day. She was cool.
I was at a concert a while back. I'm a very short guy and I was somewhere in the middle of the crowd windmilling the fuck out, not really caring about not being able to see, just enjoying the music etc. The guy standing next to me was an absolute giant of a man with hands as big as spades. Suddenly, he reaches out and takes me in his monster-sized mitts. I'm thinking the worst at this moment, maybe I've pissed him off with my relentless windmilling, but he simply lifts me into the air and plops me onto his shoulders so I can watch the rest of the set with a premium view. When the set concluded, he let me down like a toddler and simply nodded at me when I thanked him. Edit, this really blew up. I am small, about 5'8" and 10 stone or something, but this guy was seriously gargantuan. He was an absolute hero and I always remember people like this in times of need to remind myself of all the good people out there. The band was Devil Driver. Windmilling means headbanging in a circular fashion so your hair whips around like a windmill.
When I was in elementary I forgot I was getting picked up that day and hopped on the bus. I got home but didn't have a key so I sat outside. LA heat was bad. This lady slightly down the road saw me and let me go to her house for some snacks and juice and called my mom. Mom rushed in to find my dumbass admiring the lady's glass chess pieces. I don't remember her that well. Happened about 10 years ago, but I'll never forget what she did. Edit, oh my damn, my first silver? Thanks so much my guy.
When I was with my first wife and my daughter was only almost a year old, I had lost my job. We were getting toward the end of our savings. I went to the store to pick up a few groceries for the next few days, and as I went to go pay, a middle-aged woman came up and says, "Excuse me." She said, "I do not know why, but something is telling me I need to pay for your groceries." I couldn't believe it. Just about started crying, and I gave her a huge hug.
Just this week I fell asleep on my morning commute and nearly missed my stop. All of us on the early express bus are technically strangers but know each other based on our unofficial assigned seats, ECT. Well, one guy rushed to wake me up. The other asked the bus driver to wait. The bus driver himself was like, "Doesn't someone get off here?" And when I nearly forgot my coat in my race to get off, they passed it forward. It was incredibly kind and considerate. I brought Kit Kats for them the next day, and thanks. Reminds you that you have a village even when you don't know it. Edit 1. This was in the USA. Our bus starts at Port Authority in NYC and goes through Hackensack, NJ. Yes, we are all New Yorkers who reverse commute into Jersey for work. Edit 2. Thank you for the silver, kind strangers. Edit 3. Oh man, gold? You're all great people and are now my Valentines. Have a great weekend.
A year or two ago I was on a long road trip, doing about 90 on the highway. There was a guy behind me for at least 2 hours, not tailing me, but we were both going about the same speed. Out of nowhere, he speeds up like crazy, cuts me off, and then slows down to the speed limit right in front of me. I had to slam the brakes and I was really pissed off. Not even a minute later we drove past a cop. After we passed the cop, he speeds up to 80 to 90 again. He must have been using a GPS that alerted him to police on the road, and he was nice enough to cut me off so I wouldn't get a speeding ticket. Was really awesome.
When I was 9, a bee stung me right on my eyelid and my eye swelled shut and looked deep purple and disgusting. I was out to breakfast with my dad and some guy came up and gave me $1. Doesn't seem like much now, but back then it totally made my day.
I ran out of gas on a dirt road in New Mexico. No one around and miles from town. A guy picked me up, drove me to the gas station and then all the way back out to my truck. He also refused money when I offered it and said, "Just make sure you help someone when they need it."
When I was working in customer service, on my break, this nomad lady actually came up to me and told me not to give up. "It's not my time yet, but I will achieve what I want, it just hasn't aligned properly yet. Just don't give up." When having a rough day, I always remember her face and her words. Whatever force is out there, I wish her well.
When I was 23 years old, I was about to walk into a sandwich shop and it was raining. I noticed out of my peripheral that there was a woman maybe 20 or so feet behind me. I held the door in the rain and she thanked me graciously. She went in line in front of me, ordered her sandwich and left. When I went to pay, she had paid for my sandwich without saying anything.
Years and years ago, this little kid walked up to me and gave me a little baggie of stuff that he was giving out to people as a doing nice things gesture. It was really sweet, and I still have it.
Was spending a summer in Vancouver. I was doing some food shopping with my girlfriend, but we both weren't sure if we'd been paid yet. Got to the till with all our stuff, $100 worth, and as you can expect, both our cards got declined. As I was apologizing to the cashier, a woman behind us walked right up and stuck her card in the machine. I tried to tell her there was no need, but she insisted, saying, "Someone did something really nice for me today, and I'm just paying it forward." Was so stunned by this, tried to get her details to pay her back, but she just smiled, said it was nothing and went on her way. One of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me. Thank you, random Canadian lady. Thank you.
A man who worked at Subway gave me a free cookie. I get really nervous when talking to strangers. I often stumble over words and I get really stressed. I think he realized that and asked what my favorite cookie was and then gave it to me for free.
I was eating gelato in Florence, peak tourist season, plus there was a heat wave, and I was kind of a mess. Just as I finish, some random shopkeeper offers me her hand and indicates for me to follow her. In my horrible Italian, I tell her no thank you and I don't speak Italian. She is adamant and so I figure I'll go. She leads me to this tiny bathroom, which she unlocked for me, and gestures for me to wash my hands. I cried. I'd been traveling alone in Europe for like 2 weeks, living out of my backpack and sleeping on couches and buses. It was such a simple act of kindness, but I will never forget it.
Probably not the most wholesome, but one day after a really tough day at work I was taking the bus home. It was a Saturday night and 7 to 8 really rowdy drunk 18-ish-year-olds got on the bus. I was quietly sitting there while they yelled, "Bruh, you don't even know bruh, you know bruh," thinking that these kids are everything that's wrong with the world. My stop came up and the back door of the bus wouldn't open, the bus started to depart, and if I went to the next stop it would have been a 20 minutes walk back in -30-degree weather. They saw and started yelling at the driver to stop and ran up to get his attention. I'm a little socially awkward and wouldn't have said anything. After they got the driver to stop and opened the back door, one turned to me and gave me a fist bump and was like, "We got you bruh, have a good night." Not a huge thing, but I really needed that day.
I had been sent to live in temporary housing out of state by California Social Services. It turned out to be a hoarder den meth house. I posted about the house on TikTok and gained a lot of followers. One of the followers, a total stranger, offered to help and drove 3 states away to rescue myself and the dog who had adopted me. She is currently helping me navigate her state's social services programs in order to help me get my own housing. I will always appreciate her.
When I was little I didn't understand taxes and I bought a giant ice cream cone, and when I went to pay they said more than I had, and I was like, quote, "What are taxes?" And the lady behind me, who obviously had a lot of stuff to buy, bought my ice cream for me. She was really cool in my opinion.
Helped me with my suitcases. I had moved to Sweden and was at a train station in Stockholm with 2 massive suitcases. The elevator was out of order, and I had to trek up a huge flight of stairs to get to my train. A lovely stranger saw me struggling, took my bags and hauled ass up the stairs. I was so thankful I nearly cried. Jet lag sucks.
Actually, it was a Redditor. I was a really poor college student. I worked 20 hours a week, but got cut back to 10 hours. Rent also increased. I didn't qualify for low-income aid, like food stamps, because grants for tuition at school counts as income. It's dumb. I had a hard time affording groceries and even meat. My meals consisted of eating cucumbers and bananas and rice crackers. I had broth and pasta and stuff, but I was getting way thinner. I'm already a short and skinny girl at under 100 pounds, and was getting skinnier, and way weaker. Like walking upstairs hurt and would leave me feeling exhausted. We met up and he bought me groceries, lots of meat, and even cooked for me. Smiley face. When I took the first bite of the steak he cooked I literally cried and embarrassed myself. He would send me every now and then a delivery of Amazon groceries. I'm still in touch with that person and very grateful. It was a really hard time in my life.
This goes back to the payphone days, but I was locked out of my apartment and needed to call my girlfriend to let me in, and some homeless guys I regularly talked to and gave money to gave me coins for the payphone.
I was in a toy store with my 2 young kids who were both throwing a fit because they wanted a toy. We were there to buy a birthday present for someone else. I was exhausted and sick and at my wit's end. They wouldn't listen to me, so I just started ignoring them and tried to grab a gift as fast as I could. A lady who I'd say was in her 50s came up to me, looked me in the eye and said, "I just want to tell you something. I know you probably don't hear this enough, but I want you to know you're a really good mother." I instantly started crying and gave her a hug. I didn't know it at the time, but I really needed that. What a simple gesture to brighten sometimes day. This was about 5 years ago and I still think about it.
2 friends and I broke down 3 hours from home. Walked to a gas station, but we were broke, so didn't really have a plan. Couldn't afford a mechanic or tow or hotel. We were high schoolers who snuck away to a college party. No one wanted to call home and get in trouble. At the gas station 2 young hippies are eating donuts, so we approach them and ask for a ride back to our car. I guess we were hoping it magically fixed itself. They agree and insist on staying while we check it out in case we were stranded again. Turns out they were fish fans and following a tour. It was a little out of their way, but they drove us back and dropped us off right at our doors. We listened to fish the whole way while they rolled joint after joint. It was awesome and they seemed happy to do it. Eventually I had to tell my mom the truck broke down while I was lost and somehow it ended up at a tow yard 3 hours away. Weird.